Somewhere in your bank statement, a tiny charge is bleeding. You dry month after month because a company engineered cancellation to feel like drowning in paperwork. How many free trials have turned into silent rent payments? How many times have you searched for cancel and found a maze instead of a button? And who profits when you give up and tell yourself, I'll deal with it later? Stay with me. And by the end, you'll know the traps, the playbook behind them, and the cleanest way out. Picture the moment you notice it. A brand name you half recognize. A charge small enough to slip past your alarm system, big enough to sting when you multiply it by 12. It's not a dramatic theft. It's worse. It's the kind of slow siphon that makes you blame yourself. I must have clicked something. I probably forgot to cancel. That one's on me. And that's the first trick turning a manufactured problem into personal shame. Because the modern subscription trap isn't a mistake. It's a machine. It has a funnel that catches you, a maze that holds you, and a set of legal rules that decide how much pain a company is allowed to put between you and your own money. Regulators call part of this negative option marketing the deal, where your silence, your inaction, your busy life becomes acceptance to keep charging you. At first glance, this seems like a petty problem. Nickel-and-dime stuff. Annoying, sure, but not exactly the dark side of capitalism. But here's the catch: subscription traps scale the way software scales. One confusing screen isn't one confusing screen. It's a template that can be served to tens of millions of people in 100 languages, while an algorithm watches who escapes and who doesn't. The FTC's own staff report on dark patterns describes how online businesses can experiment with manipulative designs more easily, frequently, and at a much larger scale than physical stores, to see what most effectively influences consumer behavior. So when you fight a cancel flow and lose, you're not losing to a website. You're losing to years of testing. And right now, quietly, there's a good chance you're enrolled in something you wouldn't enroll in if you had to make the decision again today. Not because you're stupid, because you're human. And the subscription economy is built around a human weakness that sounds harmless until it starts charging interest. We don't feel pain at the moment of sign-up, and we don't feel urgency at the moment of renewal. We feel it later. We feel it when the bank app shows the damage. Hold on to one question as we go. If cancellation were truly easy, if it were truly one click in and one click out, how many subscription businesses would collapse overnight? Because the central lie of modern subscriptions isn't "this will renew." The central lie is "cancel anytime," said in the same tone as "breathe anytime," as if it doesn't deserve explanation. Now, subscriptions didn't begin as a scam. Humans have had subscriptions for centuries. Newspapers, milk deliveries, book clubs. But the internet turned subscriptions into a perfect product. Predictable revenue, low friction, and this is the real innovation: a payment that disappears into the background of your life. A normal purchase is loud. You hand over money. You feel it. A subscription is quiet. It's a standing order on your future self. A future self who might not even remember signing the contract. It's a repeating decision you're prevented from revisiting. And once payments become quiet, two things happen. First, companies start competing on who can make the entry point feel smallest. Not cheaper in reality, smaller in the moment. Free trial. Just $1. First month 90% off. Second, companies start competing on who can make the exit point feel hardest. Not hard as in impossible, hard as in exhausting. Hard as in not today. Hard as in I'll do it later. That's why this niche has exploded. The dark side isn't secret meetings in smoke-filled rooms. The dark side is design meetings with dashboards. There are people who get paid to reduce churn. And churn is just a polite word for customers escaping. Now zoom out. In July 2024, the FTC and International Consumer Protection Networks announced results from a review of subscription services, 642 websites and apps across the globe. They said nearly 76% employed at least one potential dark pattern, and nearly 67% used multiple. That alone is damning, but the details are nastier. Reporting on the same review, TechCrunch highlighted that forced action, making users provide payment details just to access a free trial, showed up in 66.4% of the sites and apps examined. It also described how 22.5% pre-selected the subscription option in purchase flows, and 38.3% used false hierarchy to make the option favorable to the business more prominent. If 3 out of 4 restaurants in a city served you a dish with hidden fees and then dared you to complain, you'd call it a racket. Online, we call it a business model. The OECD has a name for this genre: dark commercial patterns, digital choice architecture that subverts or impairs consumer autonomy, often to get more money, personal data, or attention time than you wanted to give. Money, data, attention. Subscriptions eat all three. They take money monthly. They keep you logged in and track what you do. And they turn your attention into a weapon against you the more tired you are, the more you let things slide. Now here's the part that makes people angry. A lot of subscription traps aren't even hidden in the cinematic sense. They're hidden in plain sight behind a veil. Your brain has been trained to ignore terms. Auto-renew, recurring, trial converts to paid unless canceled. That phrasing works because it's not read. It's survived. And when you survive it, when you click through, because you just want the thing, you step into the machine. So let's walk through the machine from the moment it first touches you, because once you see the pattern, you'll start recognizing it in your own life like a bad smell you can't unsmell. It starts with the funnel, the capture. The funnel's job is not to convince you the subscription is valuable. The funnel's job is to get you across one thin line, giving billing information, clicking yes, and stepping onto a moving walkway. Because once you step on the walkway, a negative option can do what it's designed to do. Interpret your silence as acceptance. Most funnels use the same handful of moves. One move is urgency, limited time, last chance, offer ends tonight. Even when the product can be sold tomorrow and the next day and the next. Another move is ambiguity. Buttons labeled continue, next, unlock, start, words that feel like you're progressing through a process you already chose, not entering a contract that can bill you indefinitely. Another move is pre-selection. The box already checked, the toggle already on, the plan already set to annual, the auto-renew already enabled. This is not a cute mistake. The FTC's own negative option enforcement policy statement says a pre-checked box does not constitute unambiguously affirmative consent. Another move is false hierarchy, the yes option, framed as normal and bright. The no option framed as small, gray, or shameful. TechCrunch notes that false hierarchy was observed in a significant share of the reviewed services. And then there is the bait that turns the funnel into a trap. Tiny upfront numbers hiding big recurring ones. This is where subscription traps feel like true crime, because the victim isn't just deceived. The victim is put into a time-delayed contract. JustAnswer is a clean example because the FTC turned it into a live case. On January 13, 2026, the FTC sued JustAnswer and its CEO, alleging the service tells consumers they can join and access expert advice for as little as $1 or $5, but actually enrolls them in a recurring subscription, costing anywhere from $28 to $125 and charges it. Immediately then continues charging monthly until cancellation. If you hear $5, your brain thinks impulse purchase. If you hear $125 every month until you cancel, your brain thinks, wait, what? The funnel is designed to make sure you hear the first sentence and miss the second. And the funnel targets people at their most vulnerable when they're stressed, when they're scared, when they need an answer fast, when the pet is sick, when the legal question feels urgent, when the health anxiety is loud. The more emotional you are, the more you click to end the discomfort. So the funnel converts panic into recurring revenue. Now, in a fair world, you'd still have an easy exit. You'd realize the mistake, cancel, move on. Mild irritation, lesson learned. But that's not the world this machine is optimized for. Because after the funnel comes the maze, the retention engine. A lot of people call this the Roach Motel pattern. Easy to get in, hard to get out. Here's a scene you've probably lived through, even if you never told anyone about it. It's midnight. You finally remember the subscription. You open the app because you can't sleep anyway. And you think I'll cancel right now, clean, quick, done. But the first screen asks you to log in. You try a password. Wrong. You try another. Wrong. You hit Forgot Password, and it tells you the reset email was sent except you don't remember which email you used when you signed up during that chaotic week 6 months ago. So you switch to searching your inbox. Nothing. You search receipt. Different services. You search the company name. A marketing email. No cancellation link. You go back. Now you're locked out. Try again in 15 minutes. And that's before the guilt screens even start. We're sorry to see you go. Are you sure? What if you just pause? Here's 50% off for 3 months. This isn't customer service. It's a hostage negotiation where the hostage is your attention span. And in the end, the most common outcome isn't you decide you love the service. The outcome is simpler. You close the app and tell yourself you'll do it later. That's the maze doing exactly what it was built to do. Here's what's important. The maze isn't built to stop everyone. It's built to stop enough people to make the numbers work. If a company can reduce cancellations by a small percentage, at scale, the money compounds month after month. And because recurring charges are quiet, people don't always notice right away. That delay is profit. So what does a maze look like in practice? It looks like call to cancel. Only during business hours, only through a special department, only after you listen to a pitch, only after you repeat yourself, only after you prove you are you. It looks like chat with us, and the chat is a bot that doesn't understand cancel. It understands retain. It asks, are you sure? It offers discounts you didn't request. It loops. It looks like a survey you can't skip. It looks like a screen that says, we're sorry to see you go, here are 3 better plans. It looks like a pause button disguised as cancel. And sometimes it's even simpler. The cancel button is technically there, but hidden behind enough steps that you run out of patience. Here's the psychological move the maze exploits. The cost of canceling starts to feel higher than the cost of staying at least today. Not financially, emotionally. You tell yourself you'll do it later. When you have time, when your brain is quieter, when you're not tired. That later is the company's moat. And then comes the cruelest trick, shame. You look at the charges and feel stupid. You don't want to admit you got trapped. You don't want to call customer service and say out loud, I forgot. So you postpone. You delay. You avoid. The FTC's dark patterns staff report notes that many consumers don't realize they're being manipulated, and even when they do, they may not report it sometimes out of embarrassment at being tricked. Embarrassment is profitable. Now you might be thinking, okay, but isn't this illegal? Isn't there a law that says you can't do this? This is where we enter the third chamber, the air cover. The air cover is the legal gray zone, where companies claim they disclosed material terms, claim you consented, and claim their cancel flow is reasonable. Meanwhile, regulators try to define what reasonable means. In an economy that can test 1,000 variants of a cancel screen before breakfast. In the United States, a key tool is ROSCA, the Restore Online Shoppers Confidence Act. The FTC's own summary says it prohibits certain online sellers from charging your account unless they clearly disclose all material terms and obtain your express informed consent. Section 5 of the FTC Act is another tool, the broad ban on unfair or deceptive practices. And in October 2021, the FTC issued an enforcement policy statement because negative option practices had remained a persistent source of consumer harm, with thousands of complaints each year. It also laid out core principles: disclosure, consent, and cancellation. One principle cuts through the noise like a knife: cancellation should be at least as easy as the method. You used to sign up and should be available through the same medium, same website, same app, not a different obstacle course. As easy in, as easy out. That's the whole war. So in October 2024, the FTC tried to turn the principle into a nationwide modern rule. It announced a final click-to-cancel rule, requiring sellers to make it as easy for consumers to cancel as to sign up, and to provide a simple mechanism to cancel and immediately halt charges. This wasn't a small tweak. The FTC said the updated rule would apply to almost all negative option programs in any media, and it pointed to rising consumer complaints nearly 70 per day on average in 2024. It was also part of a broader political mood, the idea that time is money, and businesses shouldn't be allowed to waste your time, as a way of extracting more of your money. Now imagine you're a business built on subscriptions. If you're honest, a click-to-cancel rule is annoying but manageable. If you're not honest, if your retention is quietly powered by friction, the rule is a threat, a direct attack on your most profitable feature, the maze. So, of course, it was challenged. And here is the midpoint twist, the betrayal that reframes everything. On July 8, 2025, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit vacated the FTC's click-to-cancel rule on procedural grounds. The court concluded the Commission failed to follow procedural requirements under Section 22 of the FTC Act, granted the petitions for review, and vacated the rule. Let that land. The government built a lock for the cage, announced it loudly, told people relief was coming, and then the lock was thrown away days before it could protect anyone. The worst part is how clean the loss looks on paper. The court's opinion describes an administrative law judge finding the rule would surpass the $100 million threshold in annual economic effect, triggering a requirement for a preliminary regulatory analysis. The court concluded Section 22 required that analysis, even if the FTC initially estimated otherwise. This is what corporate power looks like in 2025. Not just lobbying, not just ads, but procedure, paperwork, the ability to turn consumer protection into a technical debate, where vacated means you keep getting billed. Now, the part the headlines sometimes gloss over: who brought the challenge and why that matters. The Eighth Circuit opinion itself lists a parade of petitioners and amici industry associations and major business groups arguing the FTC exceeded its authority and botched the process. The petitions were consolidated in that court, and the court's opening framing makes it clear it understands the consumer harm, even as it throws out the rule anyway. If you're wondering how a consumer protection rule can be killed, without anyone saying subscription traps are good, this is how you attack the scaffolding, not the intent. You don't need to win the moral argument. You just need to win the procedural one. And procedure is slow poison. Every month a rule is delayed. Millions of recurring charges keep happening in the background. Nobody gets a notification that says, "Congratulations, you were billed," because a preliminary regulatory analysis wasn't issued. So the outcome isn't neutrality. The outcome is more time for the maze to keep harvesting forgetfulness. And the twist changes the question. It's no longer only what traps do companies use. It becomes, if the traps are obvious enough that regulators wrote a rule to stop them, what does it mean that the rule died right before it mattered? Here's the answer. You won't like the system doesn't just trap consumers. It traps reform. Because rules change defaults. Rules scale. Rules make the maze illegal in one sweep. Without the rule, you're back to case-by-case fights. Lawsuits, settlements, enforcement actions. Duels. Slow, expensive, and limited. And the moment the rule died, the subscription trap economy didn't get embarrassed into stopping. It kept going. And it's not just an American problem. In the UK, the government has described subscription traps as a widespread issue, tied to unclear terms and complicated cancellation routes, saying unwanted subscriptions cost consumers around $1.6 billion annually, and that unwanted subscriptions can cost families about $14 per month per subscription. That's not a few careless clicks, that's a structural drain on household budgets. And every one of those pounds started as a single, harmless click that was designed to be forgotten. Let me show you what happened next. First, the maze kept operating in the wild, because the market was already full of it. Remember the International Review, nearly 76% of subscription services used at least one potential dark pattern, nearly 67% used multiple. Second, regulators shifted from rulemaking to warfare. In August 2025, 1 month after the rule was vacated, the FTC sued the operators of LA Fitness and related gym chains, alleging they made cancellation exceedingly difficult and seeking a court order and money back for consumers. The FTC emphasized that the case would be decided by the court because a filed complaint is based on reason to believe, not a verdict. And the details of the alleged maze are almost insulting. According to the FTC's complaint, as described in its press release, customers were required to cancel either in person or by mail. To begin, they were instructed to log in and print a cancellation form, and login itself could require the email used at sign-up, the key tag number, and digits from a payment account just to reset credentials. In-person cancellation, the FTC alleges, could be restricted to one specific employee, effectively bottlenecking cancellations into narrow hours even though multiple employees can sell you the membership. The FTC also alleges mail cancellations could be nudged towards certified or registered mail, creating additional costs just to stop being charged. This is the Roach Motel in its purest form: easy entry, engineered exit pane. And if you've ever tried to cancel a gym membership and felt like you needed a lawyer, you're not imagining things. You were walking through a designed obstacle course. Now, a key point: LA Fitness is not unique. It's just visible. The FTC says the operators had more than 600 locations and over 3.7 million members nationwide, and that membership prices can range widely. That scale is exactly why friction matters. A little friction times millions equals serious money. Third, the biggest players started paying. Not because they suddenly grew a conscience, but because the numbers got too loud to ignore. On September 25, 2025, the FTC secured what it called a historic $2.55 billion settlement against Amazon over Prime enrollment and cancellation practices, $1 billion civil penalty, and $1.5 billion in refunds, with an estimate of 35 million consumers impacted. A number like 2.5 billion is meant to feel like justice. Your brain almost can't picture it. But zoom in, it represents millions of people who, according to the FTC, were enrolled without consent or discouraged from canceling through complicated flows. And the FTC's language here is rare. It didn't just say difficult. It said sophisticated subscription traps designed to manipulate consumers into enrolling, and then made it exceedingly hard to end. The settlement terms read like a repair manual for dark patterns, include a clear and conspicuous button to decline. Prime, disclose material terms like cost and frequency of charges, and create an easy way to cancel, using the same method used to sign up without making it difficult, costly, or time-consuming. The press release also notes internal communications. The FTC says, "We're uncovered. Subscription driving is a bit of a shady world, and unwanted subscriptions, described as an unspoken cancer. That's not a random bug. That's an internal moral injury." So here's the paradox that should make you uneasy. The broad protection, the rule, gets killed in court on procedure, but the enforcement continues, sometimes with brutal headline penalties, which creates a system that looks like punishment, while the underlying market keeps using the same playbook. Why? Because the trap economy is not powered by one company. It's powered by incentives, and incentives don't change because one giant gets fined. They change when the defaults change. A rule changes the default. A lawsuit is a duel. That's why the vacatur matters. It pushed the fight back into one-by-one battles, where the machine keeps running while lawyers argue. And the wars kept coming. In January 2026, the FTC sued JustAnswer, alleging misleading pricing tactics obscured the true price of services, and that consumers were enrolled in recurring subscriptions without affirmative consent. The FTC sought injunctive relief, money back, and civil penalties. Again, it's an allegation until a court decides. So if you're wondering, did the death of the rule legalize the traps? No. The court didn't bless subscription traps. It vacated the rule because of procedural deficiencies. But if you're wondering, did it make traps easier to keep using? That's the darker question, because rules create clarity. Removing that clarity hands leverage back to companies with teams of lawyers and optimizations. Teams that treat your patients like a resource. Now, let's pull back another layer. Because if we stop at these companies are evil, we miss the mechanism. And missing the mechanism is how the machine survives. The subscription trap economy is powered by metrics. Churn, retention, lifetime value. Those words sound sterile, but they translate into something physical. How many times your bank account gets hit before you escape? Here's the cruel part, the same digital experimentation. The FTC describes testing, iterating, scaling means the trap can evolve faster than any single regulator can respond. A company can run hundreds of variants of a sign-up flow. It can test button wording. It can test the size of the cancel link. It can test how long you'll tolerate being asked. Are you sure? Before you give up. It doesn't feel like crime because it doesn't happen in a dark alley. It happens in a user interface, but the effect is the same. You lose money without consciously agreeing to keep losing it. Now let's talk about the psychology, because this is where the trap stops. Feeling like a bug and starts feeling like a predatory strategy. The maze exploits 3 human defaults. Default 1, we avoid conflict. Cancellation is framed like confrontation. You're breaking up with a service. Companies make you talk to a human, or a bot that behaves like a disappointed friend. You feel friction. You postpone. Default 2, we protect our ego. Admitting you got tricked feels humiliating. The FTC's report notes embarrassment can keep people from reporting or acting. That embarrassment buys the company time. Default 3, we conserve mental energy. Every extra step is a tax on your attention. The OECD explicitly connects dark patterns to extracting attention time, not just money. So when a cancel flow asks you to find an email, reset a password, confirm identity, answer. A survey, reject a discount, and then confirm. Again, what it's really doing is draining your mental battery until the simplest choice is not today. In other words, the maze converts cognitive fatigue into profit. And because it feels like just a few clicks, you don't even see it as exploitation. You see it as inconvenience, and inconvenience is socially acceptable. Nobody calls the police because a website was inconvenient. That's why the machine hides in inconvenience. Now, this is the part where people often say, fine, I'll use my bank. I'll just block the charge. Sometimes you can. But even that is part of the game, because some companies treat payment disruptions like a temporary annoyance. The FTC alleges in the LA Fitness case that consumers who try to stop charges sometimes find they are rebilled, even under new account numbers. It's not enough to want to leave. You have to escape cleanly. And escaping cleanly requires something most people were never taught. Thinking about payment access the way you think about keys. Because that's what your card details are, keys. You don't hand your house key to strangers, because they offered a free trial of a couch. But we hand payment keys to apps like it's nothing. That's the cultural shift that made subscription traps possible. Not because consumers got careless, but because paying got abstract, invisible, one tap. And when paying becomes invisible, the ethics get blurry. Now, there's an important moral point here. Subscriptions themselves are not evil. A fair subscription is a trade you pay, you get value, you can leave easily. The dark side is when you can leave easily becomes a lie shaped like a button, a $1 join that is actually $125 a month, a cancel anytime that is actually cancel if you can endure the maze. A system so widespread that regulators across dozens of countries saw potential dark patterns. In most subscription services they reviewed. Now you might be thinking, okay, so what do I do? What's the exit? Here's the honest answer: there is no single exit, because the trap is a system. But there are exits that work because they attack the machine at its weak points. The weak points are not willpower. Willpower is exactly what the trap taxes. The weak points are visibility, control, and time. Exit strategy 1: treat subscriptions as leaks, not purchases. A subscription is not a one-time decision. It's a repeating decision you're prevented from revisiting. So you schedule the revisit yourself, not someday, monthly. You scan your statements for recurring charges and label them. When you label them, you pull them out of invisibility, which is where they thrive. Exit strategy 2, put a gate between your future self and your money. If a service doesn't need direct access to your main payment method, don't give it. Use payment methods you can shut down without negotiation. The machine can argue with you. It can't argue with a closed valve. Exit strategy 3, never interpret free as free. If a company asks for payment details, assume a timer has started. In the global review, TechCrunch summarized, 2/3 of services required payment details to access free trials. That means free often really means free for a moment, paid forever if you forget. Exit strategy 4, when you do cancel like you're dismantling a trap. Screenshots, confirmation emails, dates, not because you're paranoid, because in a system built on ambiguity, proof is power. Now you might ask, why should consumers have to do all this? Why should you need tactics like you're doing cybersecurity for your own wallet? Exactly. That's the moral punchline. The subscription trap economy externalizes the cost of canceling onto you. It treats your time and mental energy as free raw material. And that's why the click-to-cancel rule mattered so much. It was trying to standardize the idea that your time is not a business's profit center. So when the rule was vacated, it wasn't just a legal technicality. It was your time being declared negotiable. Now, let's bring all the threads together with a single brutal diagnosis. The subscription trap machine has 3 layers. Layer 1, the funnel catches you with small numbers, urgency, and pre-selected defaults. Layer 2, the maze holds you with friction, shame, and fatigue. Layer 3, the air cover keeps it alive with legal complexity, where clear and conspicuous becomes a courtroom. Argument and reform can be killed by procedure. And the cost isn't just money. It's the deeper cost of learning that choice online is often engineered, that you are not just a customer. You are a variable in an experiment. This is why the FTC's Dark Patterns report warns that these practices are on its radar, and that firms employing them should take notice. Because the trap economy creates a world where consumers start distrusting everything. Subscriptions, free trials, deals. Even honest businesses get punished because the market is full of lies. Citizens' Advice found that concern about cancel difficulty stops many people from signing up for subscriptions in the first place. In other words, traps don't just hurt consumers, they poison markets. So what does payoff look like? It looks like 3 mental models you can't unsee. Mental model 1, the leak, not the purchase. A recurring charge is a leak in your financial system. Leaks don't respond to guilt. They respond to detection and repair. You don't try harder to not leak, you find the pipe and close it. Mental model 2, friction is the product. When canceling feels hard, that difficulty is not a side effect, it's value being created for the company. The maze is what you're paying for. Once you accept that, you stop negotiating. You look for valves, not apologies. Mental model 3, procedure is power. The click-to-cancel rule was supposed to make the exit as simple as the entrance. It was vacated on procedural grounds. That means your freedom is often decided not in app settings, but in filing requirements and rulemaking steps. The dark side isn't only in the UI. It's in the paperwork wars that decide whether the UI must be fair. And if that feels bleak, let me end with something even darker, because it will explain why subscription traps are not the end of this story. Subscription traps are the small version of a bigger strategy, pushing costs into your future and hoping you don't notice until it's too late. That exact strategy is exploding in another. Place one that doesn't just nibble your wallet. It rewires your relationship with debt. Buy now, pay later. Same psychology, same time trick, same tiny entry point until your payments pile up and your future self is cornered, just like your cancel screen was. And once you've seen how companies turned cancel into a maze, you'll recognize the next maze the moment it tries to sell you money itself.